Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and it's Week 18. We did it. We got to the finish line, and today we're going to take a look at the props for Week 18. It's going to be a cray-cray week when it comes to some of the player performances. We know in Week 18, some defenses just are booking their plane reservations and looking to go home. Other teams and other players are fighting for milestones and fighting for playoff spots. So there's a lot to digest, a lot to take in, and I can't think of two better human beings to do it with, of course, than Andrew Anderson, Erickson, the Undertaker himself, and of course, my boy, the Welsh. And as you can tell from the box here, the three of us, two of us live in the Northeast and one of us lives in sunny Arizona because I'm freezing. It was 22 degrees this morning when I woke up. I know, Erickson, you are a New Englander, and there's Welsh sitting there with a nice shirt on, hair combed, looking good. Yeah, you're a jerk already.
Little margaritas. Yeah. I mean, I will say it's like 47 degrees, and if you saw what I was wearing...
Is it really? Does it get that cold where you are?
I'm looking at it right now on my computer. It's 47 degrees. Yeah, it gets cold. It gets cold out here occasionally, but, you know, dressing up, just occasional. This is the fun shirt. This is like my, wow, man, what's the bit from Tim Robinson? You guys aren't going to know it, but this is, you know, this is like the fun shirt.
No, it's the fun shirt. If it's a Bull Durham reference, no, he will not get it. We already know that Erickson's never seen Bull Durham. That has not happened. But Erickson, more to the point, Welsh has been here now full time for like a week and a half, and he's raising the dressing standard here on the program. I don't know how I feel about this. How do you feel?
I don't like it. No,
I don't
I'm
sorry,
like it
guys.
at all.
It's uncomfortable.
We have to normalize the norm with hoodies.
I completely agree. We'll get back to hoodies next week.
What else would we do with the norm besides normalize it? That's a deep question. That's your moment of zen, everybody, for the show today. But before we get to the props and, of course, our favorite picks for touchdown scorers this week, don't forget, everybody, drop your comments below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel of Betting Pros because we're the best. We're going to help you out all through the playoffs of NFL. Major League Baseball's around the corner. NBA action going for you, too, on Fast Break Bets every Wednesday, every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern with Matt Modi. Don't miss that. So ring the bell for notifications. Drop your comments. And if you subscribe and you drop your comments like good little boys and girls, you might just win a one-year free premium upgrade to Betting Pros, the greatest betting tools on the planet. So download the Betting Pros app. Use those 3 full free days of premium on iOS if you haven't already downloaded the app, so you could try it out for the NBA games, all the NFL action this weekend, and the playoffs are around the corner. So get with the program already. All right, let's get to the props already. Welsh, kick us off here. What do you have for the people in Week 18? It's going to be a crazy one, as I said, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, let's also acknowledge, as we did before this, that like we're like scraping to get the bets right now because as we're recording this,
well, you know, like the Tyler Huntley 165.5 over under. You're not a fan of that one?
I'm not a fan when there's like 7 players with rushing yard props and 11 receiving yard props this week.
Dalvin Cook. All the Dalvin Cook.
It's what you get in Week 18. The books have to hold back because you don't know who's starting and players are going to play half. Like, there's some fear going around there. So we're not getting all of the props. So you really, really had to dig in and kind of pinpoint what you like. And some of them are ugly and sometimes they're going to be ugly. My first one, it's ugly. It's a name. Not one point in this season, unless I was taking an interception or a negative prop that I think I was going to jump into. But my first bet up here, I'm going with a passing yard over. I'm going with Mason Rudolph. This number at 191.5. Rudolph has hit in his 2 starts so far. He's thrown 274 and 290. Ravens, they're averaging the 4th most passing yards over the last month and the 2nd most pass attempts. Last game Steelers had against the Ravens, Pickett was able to go for 224. Ravens, they're sitting starters. Steelers, they're all in, doing something. They've been passing the ball. They've been aggressive on that side. They're giving that trust into Rudolph. An under 200-yard prop. Yeah, I'm in. It's gross, but I'm trying to target as best as I can teams that I think that are going to be competitive for the whole game. And that's what's so difficult to find this week. They're teams that aren't going to let out halfway through. We're waiting for Rams props. Oh, Puka and his incentives and blah, blah, blah. But then he's gone. So trying to find these teams that are going to stay in it the entire game, that is trickier than anything else. And that's why I'm kind of focusing in on the Steelers and Mason Rudolph, even though the name is like yuck.
Yeah, well, look, he's had 290 and 274 in the 2 games he's played so far for 189.5, even against Baltimore seems crazy. By the way, Boggs was on the show yesterday, and he said his nightmare is the Steelers winning this game because he knows what's coming in the playoffs. So you agree with that sentiment too? That is his nightmare.
100%. No, he the thing he doesn't want more than anything on the plan is the Steelers like sneaking into the playoffs, getting bounced, getting a worse pick. Yeah, it's a bad situation, and it might happen. And if it does, it'll be Mason Rudolph dropping probably 250 on this game.
All right, come on, Anderson. Let's step up to the plate. What do you have for the people in Week 18?
This is probably one of the few props I actually really like a lot this week, given that it's Week 18, but it's Terry McLaurin, under 4.5 receptions against the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are allowing the 5th fewest receptions to wide receivers this season.
The 5th fewest
and receptions. Every time I stumble upon it, it hits. So
that's
we're
true.
Be 3 for 3.
You did point that out last time you went on your receptions diatribe.
I would love to see what the
Carol Channing of betting lately.
I'd like to see the caption. How does the caption work? That what are the words?
It looks exactly how it sounds.
Yeah.
I've seen it on the video when they posted it.
All right, never mind. Let's get back to the reception. And it's in your head now. I think that's the worst part. It's like I know it's totally
every time it comes up naturally, the bets come through.
All right, so we should start a video like Erickson's favorite receptions of the week. I think that'd be great.
You're over or under reception?
Go ahead.
Yeah, are we done?
Sorry.
I don't know, but you can go ahead.
Because they keep hitting, okay? So it's like, knock me all you want, but I'm right. I'm going to be right again in Week 18. So McLaurin has 2 games in his last 7 that he's gone over 4.5 catches. Sam Howell is his quarterback. I don't see a world where the Commanders are going to come out here and show off and leave the season on a high note. Like, they're trying to play for the number 2 draft pick overall. They're going to lose this game against Dallas, and McLaurin is probably not going to be on the field in the second half. So, easy under for me.
Sneaky.
Easy under. No, look, you make a good point for it. We kid because we love. I mean, come on. I mean, how much crap do you give me on a daily basis, Erickson? See, they don't see. They just see us on the show. They don't see the Slack chats and the text messages and the other thing. They don't see all that. Everyone calls me grandpa around these parts. I hear you. All right,
I call you Uncle Joey.
You do call me Uncle Joey. Derek calls me grandpa, even though I'm the guy that can work more things than Derek. Have you noticed that? I feel like Derek is a little bit more grandpa-y than me. I think
from
that's
a technology standpoint?
What do they call that when you project something that you do onto something else? What is that
Projecting.
called? That's it.
Projecting.
All right, let's get to the next one here. Let's get to Welsh. Number 2 for Week 18 on the props department. What do you have?
All right, I'm going. I've actually done this one a decent amount. I will tell you, some books just started moving that literally as I put it together, wrote it, and we got into the show. It's moved up a yard, so it might alter just slightly some of the things I'm going to tell you. But Rachaad White receiving yards, I got it at 21.5. It might be at 22.5. It doesn't really change a ton of my perception here, but Rachaad White has hit this number 5 straight weeks, and I think one of them might have been 22, so that's why I was saying there's a little alteration.
Yeah.
10 of his last 11 weeks, he has hit this 21.5. I think it would be 9 of 11 with 22.5. White hit this number against the Panthers earlier this year, which was 22, or maybe it was 23. Panthers actually have done a decent job stopping running backs catching into the backfield, but White is the exception to the rule. And again, a hyper focus. And I know this is kind of narrative based, and it's probably a little dangerous having a lot of narratives driving some of your bets this week, but it's Week 18. It's crazy. That's what it is. But the Bucs are all in. I mean, the Bucs are committed.
I think certain narratives, like some narratives are like the Derrick Henry's last game narrative with the Titans. I don't know if that's a narrative I care about, but the Bucs trying to win the South against the Panthers. Yeah, I do. And by the way, he's got 8 touchdowns in his last 9 games, that's just crazy. Like, he's just been unbelievable, Rachaad White, down the stretch here. Really
number 1 Fantasy Pros consensus ranked RB. If you guys check that out for the week, I know we're talking bets here, but he is ranked as the number 1 overall. I mean, this is clutch. This is what he does. He has been catching balls all year long. It's going to continue, especially in a very important game. This is one I'm smashing. 21.5, 22.5. It's all good. I'm taking Rachaad White over receiving yards.
All right, Erickson, back to you. I hope it's a rushing prop, not receptions, but what do you have?
It is a rushing prop. It's actually the only over I have this week because I'm just betting all unders because with all the unknown of Week 18, it's just take the under. The guy might not play in the second half of the game, and you still win the bet. So that's the approach I'm approaching this week with. But the over I like is on Ken Walker. We talked about it earlier in this week when we were doing some of our bold predictions on the Fantasy Pros show. Ken Walker's prop was at 62.5 rushing yards, and now it's actually been bet down to 55.5. Don't know why. We're playing Arizona. I get that Ken Walker's banged up with the shoulder injury, but he's been practicing as a limited participant, so he's going to play in this game, and he's going to get it out, and the Arizona Cardinals are the worst run defense, not named the Denver Broncos. So they're going to feed Ken Walker. Ken Walker almost got to 55 yards last week on 10 carries because he's a super explosive running back. The last 7 running backs the Cardinals have played have gotten at least 61 rushing yards. So I just think that Walker is I think the number's just too low. Again, like he could get hurt. That's totally possible. He could get knocked out of the game. But if he's playing even just a half of football in a game that the Seahawks have to win, again, we're playing motivation. They have to beat the Cardinals to make that or to get a chance at the postseason. It's going to be because of Ken Walker. So I like the over on his rushing.
Has Walker done enough this year, Erickson, in your opinion, to stave off Charbonnet in 24?
I mean, not really. I mean, all he did in the beginning of the season was score a bunch of touchdowns, and Charbonnet still worked more as a receiver. I mean, all the things that I was worried about with Ken Walker kind of came to fruition, where I was concerned about his health. He did not stay healthy the entire year. Mm-hmm. He was very boom or bust, and his receiving work was very hit or miss. So I know he's a good player.
RB20 on the year in terms of fantasy. He did play 14 games, so even though he did miss some time, 14 games is still, I think, better than a lot of us would have expected necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I think for where you drafted him, I think he was fine. Again, he was much better in the beginning of the year than the end of the year when he scored a bunch of touchdowns. So again, I think it's really more with him. It's the price. Like if he's like a 3rd round pick next year, I'm like, sorry, I'm not drafting him at 3rd round. But it's like goes where he went last year, pretty similar. I think that he's probably an okay pick.
All right, let's get to another pick here for Welsh. Welsh, you've got some feelings about a game that, look, I mean, we might as well put them all together, too, because they're kind of connected, your next two, and then we'll bounce back to you, Erickson. The Packers-Bears game, I mean, this is a chance for the Bears to kind of end on a really high note here. Play spoiler to the Green Bay Packers, and you've got not one but 2 props involved in that, so let's talk about them.
Yeah, and by the way, call me Is It the Over this week because I'm all overs. And I will say, Andrew has inspired me for my unders. I've been hitting my unders. My unders have been smacking.
They are. The unders aren't sexy, but they make money.
They do. I was like 4 for 5 last week. 4 for 5 last week. And two of the ones I hit were unders, but I didn't fall in love with any unders. So it's an all overs week for me. So coming back to this again, talking about narratives, here's another narrative that's going on with the Bears is the team collective rallying around Justin Fields. That's something we're going to be talking about the rest of the season. DJ Moore, I want him to be my quarterback. Players want him to be the guy. And obviously this is going to be a big question into the offseason if they keep him, if they draft Caleb Williams and keep him or trade him. But this is the week for him to go off and make that statement game at the end. And you saw DJ Moore as well with the Joker tweet. If anyone followed him, he simply just put out Heath Ledger's The Joker. So this is going to be chaos crazy time. So let's come back to the props. The narrative is Justin Fields' statement, DJ Moore, Joker, we're going. So I'm getting in on both of them on overs. First one is Justin Fields' passing yards. That number, 198.5. It actually just went up within the last hour from 197 to 198.5. It's minus 115 on DK. Fields has hit this number in 3 of his last 5 games. Packers, they're 11th in passing yards given up over the last month. They also had the 6th worst completions to attempts by a defense, where what I'm saying is they gave up 80 completions in just 117 pass attempts. Those pass attempts were the 11th lowest over the last month, yet they gave up the 11th most passing yards. So I think I said 11th. 6th least pass attempts given up over the last month, but the 11th most passing yards. This is a good spot for Fields. I believe in the statement across the board, so that's why I'm going with him. And then the other one was DJ Moore. I'm going with the 5.5 receptions over, which is plus money. It's 120 on DK right now. Moore's hit this in 4 of his last 6 games, and since week 11, the number 1 wide receiver against Green Bay has hit 6 or more receptions in 6 of 7 games. So I got narrative, I got number 1 receiver, I got a bad defense, Justin Fields passing, DJ Moore receptions. Gimme.
By the way, don't forget, week 1, remember DJ Moore's 2 reception performance for 25 yards in week 1, and everyone was losing their mind, and now he finishes wide receiver 7 in fantasy. He's got 1,300 yards since that 25-yard receiving performance. He ended up with 130 targets on the year, so not too shabby for DJ Moore. I like the over in this one too. I think that's a lock there. But what a funny button to put on a season, right? We're talking full circle stuff here from, and we'll see if the Bears can go into Green Bay and take care of business and handle it. We'll see. All right, Erickson, let's go to you for not 1, but 2 running backs that you've got here. Let's start with James Conner, 12.5 receiving yards. That's the number. So where are we going with this one?
Under, because he's gone over this number in 2 games this year. He's played 12. I'm playing the odds there.
Even though the recent trend for Connor's been good, like I guess that's the big question that people
he had 1 target last week for 5 yards. So, and the big game where he had 67 receiving yards was against the Chicago Bears, who we all know are the worst defense against receiving running backs. Tyler Algier had a 75-yard touchdown catch against the Bears. Aaron Jones is going to probably have a 75-yard touchdown catch against the Bears this week. But as a rusher, and that's what James Carter's used more as. Like, he loses snaps on third downs to Dan Mercado and Michael Carter. And again, he had 1 target last week. So his role this year has not been as a receiver, especially with Kyler Murray, who's more likely to scramble than check the ball down to his running back running a route. So I think that this is just a smart bet to make, and more often than not, it's hit. So I'm going to continue to pound the under on James Conner, his receiving usage. And then the other bet is Ty Chandler, under 44.5 rushing yards. Again, he's taking on the Lions. Dan Campbell says that the starters are going to play. I believe Dan Campbell. I think the Lions want to win this game after the sour taste kind of left in their mouth after their loss against Dallas. And I think the Vikings are ready for the offseason. I think that
I think Vikings fans are ready for the offseason.
I mean, look, what Kevin O'Connell's been able to do with all the quarterbacks, it's like eventually you're just going to run out of gas, man. Like, it's hard to just like, all right, well, what magic do we need to create with this quarterback this week? Like, and it was a good story, and like he obviously deserves a lot of credit, but eventually the team's like, we don't have the legs anymore to keep this up. So I think Detroit destroys Minnesota here, and I think Ty Chandler is going to come under his rushing yardage against the number 1 defense against the run this season. The Detroit Lions allowing the fewest rushing yards to running backs, and the last time Chandler played the Lions, week 16, he had 17 rushing yards. So could take the under on Ty Chandler.
I almost forgot about the Josh Dobbs weeks. Like, it's been so crazy these last few weeks, going back and forth with all the Mullen stuff and the Jaron Hall stuff, and I'm like, all right. The Josh Dobbs stuff, that happened after Cousins got hurt.
I mean,
it was really
he did
good.
It with everybody.
I know, but he did it but it was really good for like a hot minute, and it was really exciting, and then it just completely fell apart.
You know what's funny? In fantasy this whole year, we've been complaining. We're like, look at all these crazy quarterbacks that are in for fantasy. Like, literally, the Vikings have had their own fantasy team. Like, we've been dealing with. They just Jaron Hall and Josh Dobbs and Mullins. Like, they have experienced what we've experienced in fantasy.
And they lost Hawkinson too. Like, it's just, I mean, they just lost.
Yeah,
the
Vikings. They I don't like participation trophies, but they should kind of get one because they really tried hard. I feel like they did. The Jefferson injury too. Most of the year. I mean, nothing went right. Last year, everything went right for the Vikings to a point where every bounce of the ball went their way, and then the playoffs, so we all know what happened there, but they're the Vikings. But I mean, this year, they really tried. They gave it everything they had, and I think it's time to just go take a break. Go sit there, relax, take a vacation, sit on a beach somewhere, have a cocktail, and try again next year, or this year, I should say. Now we're in 24. All right, Welsh, let's go to you for another running back, as we got 2 more running backs to talk about this week for week 18. Yours plays for the Houston Texans, so let's talk about him.
Narratives. Give me one last here. I am going with Devin Singletary, rushing yard 63.5 over. Without the narrative, let's start here. Since week 10, 6 of 7 top running backs have cleared this rushing yard total against the Colts. Colts are giving up the 9th most rushing yards per game over last month, which we like. Singletary has hit this in 3 of his last 4 games, but the narrative, Singletary's got a $250,000 incentive if he gets 74 or more total yards. So this is a great rushing spot. Texans are playing it out. I know there's plenty of like snarky, smarmy people out there. They're like, "Ooh, narrative. Ooh, they're gonna change the whole game plan so these guys can get
narrative
money."
and financial incentives are a little different.
I agree, and I think Devin Singletary. What I like about it is we do have this narrative incentive, and we have a lot of things that are pushing why this can hit. So I love this one for Devin Singletary. We've seen a lot of big playability out of him this year. This has actually jumped up 2 yards over the last 24 hours. So I wouldn't be surprised if this jumps up another 2 or 3. So I love locking it in right here because he can play a little bit in the passing game. But Devin Singletary for a team that is being competitive, that you can run against, and that this has been hitting, I love everything about it. It was the second bet. DJ Moore was the first bet I locked in, those receptions. This was the second bet that I locked in this week. So that will be my final on the top 5.
All right, let's go back to you, Erickson. We got a huge Sunday night football game. The Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins in a battle for the AFC East and supremacy there. But you've got a running back prop here. And if we're going to, keep it real here and end the season the right way, I assume it's going to be an under, yes?
Yes, it is going to be an under on James Cook and his rushing yardage. 64.5 rushing yards. We're going to take the under. So he's gone over this just twice in his last 5 games played, excuse me. And the usage with James Cook has just been bizarro land. Like, I don't know what they're doing with James Cook, where they unleashed him for a month. And it's like, this is great. Like, the offense is unstoppable. And then it's like, no, we're just not going to use him anymore. It's like, we got to use Leonard Fournette. We got to use Ty Johnson. We got to use Latavius Murray. I'm like, what are you doing, Buffalo? Just
the Leonard
do what
Fournette
was
thing
working.
really was upsetting. Could I just say that? That was really upsetting.
Just Joe Brady. I don't know what they're doing on offense, but what I do know is the Dolphins are a very tough matchup for running backs. The Miami Dolphins rank number 1 in the NFL in terms of allowing the least explosive rushing percentage to opposing running backs. You look at what James Cook did the last time he faced the Miami Dolphins in a blowout win for the Bills. He rushed for 29 yards. So again, just the usage is not trending in James Cook's direction as a rusher. I think he can get it done probably more as a receiver after those numbers have kind of dipped the last 2 weeks. But as a rusher, I just don't have enough confidence that he's going to be able to get enough volume, get an explosive run to get a number that's pretty high just based on kind of what he's done. He hasn't really been close. He's either been way over this number against bad run defenses or way below it. And against a good run defense like Miami, I just don't think he's going to come close.
All right. Doesn't think he's going to come close. Erickson, let's stick with you. Let's take your anytime touchdown call for week 18. Again, one that's kind of spread out, a lot of moving parts in week 18, but who's going to see the end zone this week and make us some money? That's what's important.
I like Dalton Schultz. Again, playing Saturday night against the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts defense is going to give up a touchdown to a tight end on Houston. Maybe it's Dalton. I hope it's Dalton Schultz, but it's going to be someone because their defense has faced the 3rd most red zone touches, 5th most red zone targets to tight ends this season, but they've only allowed 3 touchdowns to tight ends. So again, it's a number that's going to regress. As long as we continue to see tight ends this heavily involved in the red zone against the Colts, eventually they're just going to give up a touchdown. So Dalton Schultz, who's emerging as the number 2 receiver in this particular matchup against the Colts defense because there's no Tank Dell, there's no Noah Brown, Robert Woods is injured, so it's Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz as the top 2 red zone options. And just based on where the Colts are funneling their targets in the red zone, I think Dalton Schultz is going to score on Saturday night. So that's my favorite anytime touchdown for this week.
All right. Welsh, who do you think is going to score this weekend? Week 18, lay it on the people.
Well, I'm not gonna go any crazy odds, but we can get plus 145 on a Justin Fields anytime touchdown. I kind of laid out everything about why I like Justin Fields. You got a pretty large rushing prop, I would just point out, against the Packers this week. It's at 52.5, and Justin Fields has been really on a thing. He has gone over 50 in, it looks like, 4 of his last 6, and he has rushing touchdowns in 3 of his last 4. I think, and we talked about it on the matchup preview show earlier this week, I think Justin Fields has a legit shot to be the number 1 fantasy quarterback this week in all the craziness. And I think it can be through the air, and I think it can be through the ground. They have not trusted a whole bunch of those stinky running backs. So Justin Fields, bring it in, plus 145 on the anytime touchdown.
I love that. We were on that yesterday, Debro and I, which is the audio-only version of the DFS show that we do on the podcast feed. We were talking about this yesterday and just like, look, Fields Moore is such an easy way to start this week where there's so much unknown. This is something where you're not going to worry too much about, as you said, the running backs kind of stealing a lot of the thunder necessarily. It's going to be Moore, it's going to be Fields. You lock it in, start there, and then build out from there. It's a very easy way to do it. We talked about the Seattle-Arizona game too, being a place also where you can, with the McBrides of the world, like, where the football is going. Like, we like that. We like when we know where the football is going with certain teams right now. And we know where we're going for props for week 18. So Erickson, like Schultz to get in the end zone, under on Cook, 64.5 rushing yards, under on Ty Chandler, 44.5 rushing yards, under James Conner, 12.5 receiving yards, under Terry McLaurin, 4.5 receptions, and 1 over from The Undertaker. It's got to have something
Guarantee
in there
which
for
one
fun.
messes up my 5-leg parlay.
It's going to be Ken Walker sticking you with the knife in your back.
His shoulder. He's going to get hurt.
He's going to get
hurt.
hurt.
And that's what happens when you take overs.
See you later, 55.5 rushing yards, but Erickson likes the over in theory with the air quotes there. All right, Welsh is in on Mason Rudolph's passing yards, over 189.5. Receiving yards for Rachaad White, 21.5. Justin Fields passing yards, 198.5 over. Receptions along with DJ Moore, 5.5. Small number. It's a great one. That's plus money too. I can't believe that on DK. Devin Singletary rush yards, 63.5 over, getting paid. And Justin Fields to find the end zone in week 18. Who do you think is going to smash or underperform and maybe help Andrew find some more unders? Drop your comments below in the YouTube channel. We love to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking about in week 18. And of course, don't forget, when you subscribe, you drop the comments and ring the bell, you just might win a 1-year free premium upgrade to the greatest betting tools on the planet. Start betting smarter, everybody, not harder at Betting Pros. That'll do it for us. That'll do it for week 18. Can you believe it? 18. Can't believe we got here. But of course, the story of the game goes on for Welsh and The Undertaker, Andrew Erickson. I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Enjoy week 18 if you can.